Hello, friends. Recently, I was in a home with two different homes, actually one with a wood stove and one with a fireplace, and had the opportunity to build fires in both. And it was very interesting to kind of think through the process. I used to heat with firewood for many years in various homes in cooler climates, at least in the wintertime. And so I am certainly familiar with building a fire and sort of different ways that I like to go about it, depending on what's there, depending on what's available. And in both places, there was very limited kindling being the smaller pieces that help kindle the fire, get the fire going hot enough that the bigger logs or large pieces of firewood can go on and really start. And so I had to sort of improvise. In one case, there was enough material around that I could create my own kindling, or I could chop up the firewood that was there into smaller pieces and kind of create kindling out of that. But as I was building the fire with that kindling, this observation came to me, and the implications of the observation are what I wanted to share today. The kindling in a fire, when it's first getting going, needs to be spaced appropriately. Space it too far apart, and you can get the fire going a little bit, but then it kind of tends to die out. Now, all of this depends on how dry the wood is, of course. And in that case, the wood was not entirely dry, so having kindling split up really small helped it to get dry more quickly. But the other aspect of it is put the kindling too close together, and there isn't any movement, there isn't any air. It's the air and the fire can't sort of get moving in the spaces in between. So that spacing is really important. And later on, when the fire is getting going really hot, then you can be throwing in big logs, and spacing sort of becomes irrelevant at that point, or far less relevant when there's a huge bed of very hot coals. Pretty much anything will burn, anything flammable will burn. And it doesn't need to kind of be stacked up and carefully positioned and spaced. You just throw it in there and it'll burn. The implication of all this is, one of them is that in our lives with other people, it's important to have the right spacing. Too close together, which would sort of equate to over familiarity, or kind of constantly being in the same place at the same time, and there's not enough room to breathe. There's not enough room for each soul to have their space to manifest in their way. Each one has a unique opportunity and a unique melody. It's like we lose our own melody in the commotion of being too close to somebody else or to a bunch of other people. Too far apart, and there's too much room. It's like there's not enough energy exchange, not enough cross-pollination, to use a different metaphor, different image. So getting that spacing proper is very important. Later on, when the energy is really moving and we feel the kind of the inward connection to our divine nature, then, it's like that bed of hot coals is there, and we can be a little more cavalier, perhaps is one way to say it, about kind of whether we're near or far from people. It's less relevant because we're more in contact with our own divine nature. But prior to that, it really is important. And I noticed in our lives with Swami Kriyananda and in his way of working with people and creating leadership in them, and just in his own style of leadership, he was very cognizant of how close people should be, who should be working with whom, how, when to sort of spread people apart, when to draw them together. And he had a real keen eye for that. He had a very keen sense of the flow of energy. And I liken it to how you build a fire. Because the fire, initially it may be very unpredictable. It may be very slow in getting going. Or, all the newspaper may burn up in a big flurry, in a big flash, and then hardly anything has really caught fire. It's like these flames may be huge, but they're not really affecting where the people are, where the pieces are. And similarly, in some situations, there'd be this huge flow of energy, and it would look like this big dramatic thing was happening. But then you'd watch over time. And if the fire didn't keep on going, then Swami would very consciously keep moving the pieces around until there was that proper flow of energy, that proper flow of exchange. So you might meditate on this in your own life, the spacing between your life and the lives around you. Does it feel appropriate? Is it too close? Is it too far apart? Find ways to make adjustments as appropriate in your life. And you may find that you feel a new surge, a new movement of energy and grace moving through your life. Namaste.